Hi there, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to talk about the online MSc in Animal Nutrition at Glasgow University. So my name's Sarah. I work for the graduate school, and I'm just here to present Peter Hastie to yourselves, who is the things and what you expect. I know that when you signed up to do the webinar, some of you have submitted questions. I've got those here. I'm going to answer those. Towards the end. You should follow as an attendee the option to submit questions using Q&A function. So if at any point a question occurs to you, please don't hesitate in that box. I will come back to those session and read out well. So without further ado, I'll pass on to Dr. Peter Hastie. Thank you so much.
Actually, Sarah, I can't hear you very well at all. I'm not sure if it's your connection or mine. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you fine. So maybe it's
It could be me.
Is that any better? I did get a message up saying my connection wasn't very stable, which normally it's fine.
Okay.
Is that any better or not really?
Okay, if you can hear me fine, then that's okay. So just like to welcome our attendees to this session. I'd just like to introduce myself as Peter Hastie, and I'm the Programme Director for this Animal Nutrition Programme. And I'm based at the School of Veterinary Medicine in the University of Glasgow, one of only a handful of vet schools in the UK. And I was the main person who helped develop this programme. So as you probably will have looked at the information that's on the web pages, but essentially this programme's split up into kind of three components as such, and it's part-time over 3 years essentially, although there is flexibility in that it can be taken over a slightly longer period of time if necessary, depending on circumstances. But essentially the first year of the programme is really is 3 20-credit courses, which are the kind of core principles to give you the fundamental background to animal nutrition. So in areas like anatomy and physiology, nutritional biochemistry, metabolism, and feed composition and evaluation. Then once you progress, the one thing also to say about these courses is they're all standalone courses, so there's none are really prerequisites for others. So once you've completed the 20-credit courses that over that first year, so it's one really per term or one per semester, then you can move on to the second year where we have options available. Where you select up to 6, so all the courses in second year are all 10-credit courses, and you can actually select 60 credits out of the choices available. There are some for students who are signing up and wanting to do the entire MSc, then there are a couple of courses in the second year that are mandatory, and that's so that they can prepare you for the dissertation phase. Apart from those couple of mandatory courses, for example, in research methods in animal sciences and current topics in animal nutrition, the other 40 credits you can actually choose based on what your personal interests are, whether that be ruminants, monogastrics, small animals, equine, nutrition and health, etc. So that's really how the programme's structured. And once you complete your second year satisfactorily, if you do want to do the masters, then the final year, 60 credits, is your dissertation year, where you can engage in a research project, and there's all sorts of ways we can do this. Because it is an online programme, then quite often we'll work on It could be data analysis or systematic reviews. It could be for those of you who did want to come to Glasgow or Edinburgh to do an actual physical project, then we could help facilitate that. There's a possibility, depending on where you come from, that if you have, or we could help make a link with, say, a local Department of Agriculture or Veterinary Science, where you maybe could do some of your project physically there and be co-supervised, then we can help facilitate that as well. So these are some options that you have for actually completing a research project with us. We obviously would want as many students as possible to complete the entire MSc, but everyone's circumstances are differently. So we do have exit programs where after a completion of the first 60 credits, you could exit with a postgraduate certificate. After 120 credits, you could exit with a postgraduate diploma, and then obviously the additional 60s for the masters. And the vast majority of students have signed up for the full masters. We do have 3 intakes per year in September, January and April. So you'll find that you will, if you join us and the first course that you're on, you will be with a combination of students who are also there for the first time, but also some students who are there who've been with us since April, because the programme actually started in April this year. So we've already had a full cohort of students go through their first course. So that's really a kind of summary of the programme, and obviously I'm more than happy to answer any questions now, or make any comments or anything at all. That's what this session's about. It's your opportunity to ask me about the programme, how it's run, how, you know, the online experience, etc., etc. So please feel free to either use the chat box to ask me any questions at all about the programme. And Sarah's obviously got some questions as well that were sent in beforehand that we can also work through.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Peter. I've seen here we've got a message advising there's an internet issue. It's always the danger with these online events. Is that, if you, I think what we'll have to just kind of try and keep going. If anyone is really struggling to if anyone's really struggling to hear this, because I'm recording it on my version of the PC and it seems to be coming through all right, I'm hopeful that the recording is going to be fine and you'll be able to watch it back, and I'll be able to add subtitles and things to that as well to make it clearer if there's any parts where it drops out. But hopefully, if you can't hear it just now, we'll be able to get you a version that you will be able to hear. And so if you do have additional questions, feel free to type them in the box, and that means that we'll be able to get them and answer them. The other thing that we can do is if you have any questions after this, you can email them to us and we'll get them forwarded to Peter or forwarded to the relevant person in the team. So we've had one question. Oh, have you seen it come in, Peter? The one about tutorials and meetings?
Yeah. So thanks for that question, Amy. I suppose my answer is it depends on the course and how the different weeks are structured. There is a combination, and it changes course by course, and it depends on the academics who'll be leading and those courses, etc. Some lecture material is pre-recorded and some of it is live. And we try and encourage academics as much as possible to integrate some live sessions as they go through their course. So it's hard to give you an absolute, guidelines on how many live sessions there are. One of the reasons that we have to limit some of the live sessions is because we do have candidates from all over the world in, and quite often people on these part-time programs are working quite often full-time, it can be very difficult to schedule. But what we usually try and do is send out, for example, like a doodle poll to say, okay, we're going to do a tutorial this week and such, you know, what would suit the majority, and then we try and do that. And even if that means that, for example, I'm in Scotland in the UK, and if I have to do that at 9 or 10 in the evening, then that's what I'll do if that suits the majority of candidates based on where they come from. In terms of with myself, well, I can obviously be available for meetings at any point. If anyone's got any, say, worries or concerns about their studies, or particularly if there's anything going on in your personal life that might affect the way that you're able to, say, engage with your studies, and I can help guide you on that. We are setting up an advisor of studies system where individual students will have an individual advisor of studies, and they're there for that kind of support and pastoral support as well. We have a class rep who's recently been appointed, and Danny is from Canada, and again, Danny can be a good point of port of call just to actually bounce things off as well. But certainly there are tutorials interspersed throughout all of the courses, so that we've got that live engagement, and they tend to work really quite well when they do operate. And of course there's lots of engagement through the discussion forums, which are a bit more asynchronous, but students tend to really discuss that quite a lot as well through those forums. So Amy, does that kind of answer your question, or do you want to follow up with anything? That's great, thanks Amy.
As well, I'm not sure if all the time actually can see the question. Just in case, I'll just how often we'll have tutorial meetings with yourself or other lecturers. Yeah, if anything else comes up, do free to pop it in a message there. One of the questions that was submitted via email in advance of this session was about sharing tips on becoming a registered nutritionist with the Society for Nutrition. Is that something you could comment on, Peter?
Yeah, so the Association for Nutrition, so this is something we've been thinking about in terms of at a programme level. It's in our plans. I don't know exactly when yet we'll be able to do it, probably because of the pressures we're all under due to the way we're working now with COVID, and there's quite a lot of extra work has come our way. So we don't have time to do it right at this moment, but it is in our plans to get the actual Masters itself accredited by the Association for Nutrition as an accredited programme of that. And what that means is that once that would happen, then students would be able to just apply directly to the Association for Nutrition for an associate registered nutritionist status. As far as I'm aware, you can't apply for registered nutrition status directly from the programme. Now, what the difference between an associate nutritionist and a registered is really down to experience. So the vast majority of people nowadays would apply for associate nutritionist status with the Association for Nutrition, and that certainly this degree would be a big part of your application for that. The application nowadays, if it's not by direct entry through an accredited programme, which this isn't at the moment, is via a portfolio essentially. And then once you become an associate, then you can then apply down the line for fully registered nutritionist status. And that's usually when you have more experience and more independent experience actually putting into practice. So essentially giving nutritional advice and nutritional consultancy. Now, of course, some applicants may actually come from backgrounds in feed companies already, so they actually may be able to satisfy that much quicker than others, and therefore be able to apply for full registered nutrition status a bit earlier than some. what I can say is that one of our deputy programme directors, who's Professor Joanne Murray, actually is a registered nutritionist and has been for many years. So what we can do is we can certainly support applications, and Joanne in particular, I've asked her to give her a bit of a remit for supporting students with developing their portfolios if they do want to go down that route and apply to the Association for Nutrition for registered status, essentially. So that's something we can certainly help support students doing. There is obviously a financial cost to becoming a member and an associate, which has to be met by the students, but certainly we'll do, as a programme team, we will certainly be doing our best to support students if they want to go down that route and apply whenever the time is right. And even if that means after graduation, you know, after you finish your masters, we can still help with supporting portfolios, providing references, etc.
That's great. Thank you very much.
I
So
noticed a
another
question.
question.
Yeah, sorry, I noticed a question on the chat about COVID and financial issues. I'm not sure, you might be better placed to answer that than me, in terms of, you know, if there's financial issue. I mean, we do have hardship funds, but we don't have a concession fee as such on master's programs. So
No, I think, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure on that one either. I would, however, welcome if you wanted to email. We can look into it according to your specific circumstances. I think that's probably one that would depend on circumstantial, you know, on circumstantial issues. So I think if you wanted to email us to discuss that one, then that might be easier for us to get the right answer to you.
the other difficulty is obviously there's financial issues with candidates, but also all the universities at the moment are under financial pressures as well due to COVID. So to an extent, there might be limits on what might be available as financial aid as such. But it's really not something that at a programme level we tend to deal with. It's more an admissions system, central university level. But certainly, yeah, if you can make contact.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something
we could look into that.
Registration. Yeah, we'll look into it for you. So thank you for that. Another question that we had, I think you sort of touched on this because it might come into the project. But one student asked about if it was possible to stay in Glasgow for a week and practice in the ruminant metabolism laboratory.
Yeah, well,
I wondered if that would be more connected to the project, or.
Yeah, it probably would, and certainly that's a possibility. I mean, so we, in terms of a ruminant metabolism laboratory, we don't tend to have one of those at Glasgow because of the research we do. And many research groups have moved to using commercial laboratories to do some of their analysis of samples now, and that's what we tend to do for certainly biochemistry and metabolism and chemical analysis, and we also do that with microbiome analysis. SRUC, who are kind of our partners in this programme, do a little bit more, I would have thought, on that side of things. So it would certainly be possible to hopefully go into one of their labs if you wanted some experience. Certainly our labs at Glasgow are mostly molecular type labs, so we'll do work on extracting DNA, gene expression, that kind of thing, rather than on the metabolism, because as I said, many research groups now, just for kind of, I suppose, financial reasons apart from anything, it's more cost effective to send out to actual commercial analytical labs for that kind of experience. But we can certainly, again, try and help link up with labs if need be. But as I say, SRUC are probably a little bit better placed to perhaps support that kind of experience, and we can work that out with them. It depends on the individual needs of different projects, and certainly if there are projects that potentially could involve, extracting DNA and for microbiome analysis, and that's something that we certainly do at Glasgow all the time. So certainly students, if that was their project, could come for something kind of intense week or so, week or two of experience to help do that.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. We did have one other question come through via email, which was about, well, are there any books that you would advise on purchasing prior to starting the course? And they also ask about journal access throughout the course, which I think might be connected to the library.
And I think Amy's just put a thing on the chat as well there. So we can certainly provide, I mean, we don't necessarily recommend that everybody goes out and buys books as such. We do have a very, very good library at the University of Glasgow, and we have a huge array of scientific journals that we subscribe to that are all available electronically. So once you register with us and have your what we call your GUID, which is your identifier number, that lets you log in to the resources at the library. And so you can access all of the scientific journals, and you can also access a whole array of books as e-books, not just physical books, because obviously you guys aren't in Glasgow. So there's a whole lot of e-books. In terms of, I suppose, one, and I'll type it in, which many of us in the nutrition field call the kind of Bible of animal nutrition, is literally called Animal Nutrition, and it's by McDonald. Sorry, I should say McDonald rather than McDonald's. But there's a few authors, but we call it McDonald's Animal Nutrition. That book, it really is the Bible, and it contains so much, and we'll be referring to that as you go through your studies anyway. What we tend to do, and so in terms of if you want to look at anything before you come, that's a perfect example of, that's probably about all you would need to look at the moment. When you're in the courses, we'll actually, for individual courses, and sometimes it could be even on an individual weekly basis through the course, we might suggest some recommended reading. So it could be either a chapter or even just certain paragraphs from that book or other books, and we'd put that up. Or we might also post links to journal papers and say, right, this week could you have a look at that, and then we're going to discuss whatever. So we do provide reading lists overall, but we'll provide specific reading lists or say chapters to go through within each individual course as well, so it's tailored to that course specifically. So does that help, Amy?
Thank you very much. I think that sounded quite comprehensive, but I'll give everyone a few more minutes if you've got any more questions coming to you as you watch the webinar.
Okay, so there's another question there about how we're going to conduct a dissertation. So with the dissertation, so the way I've designed this is that one of your last courses in the second year, the research methods for animal sciences. So I've tried to be quite clever with this one. So as part of or essentially the assessment for that course is to actually prepare your project plan, so that actually that's all done before you actually start your dissertation. So that's quite unusual, but I've deliberately designed it that way to give you a head start essentially on your dissertation. So because this is an online program, the majority of dissertations are probably going to be what we call systematic reviews or really extensive literature reviews. And they're not just simply like doing a larger essay, it's about formulating a question that you are then using the literature to try and come to some kind of answer on that question. So it could be even like a meta-analysis of different papers or things like that. It could be that we have most of the vast, in fact, all of the academics who will be contributing to this programme are all research active and have their own research groups. And we've all got lots of PhD students. So another way it could work is we might have actually data that's been produced that then we can make available to dissertation students to actually, you know, so we might give them, so for example, it might be part of a much bigger project that we can give an element of that project to the student. We might have generated a lot of data, and it then might be the student can work on going through that data, working through what type of data analysis should be done and why, to try and answer the specific question that they're posing in their dissertation. So that's kind of how the dissertations normally work. As I say, because you're at distance and not in Glasgow, there's not that many are kind of laboratory or field work focused, but there's absolutely no reason. I mean, we do have this in other programs that are ODL, where students have access to either a laboratory or a field station, an animal field station, and near to where they come from, or a university near they come from, and we can certainly help facilitate a project where you can actually do a lot of the work where you are, but we'll co-supervise it and make sure that it's all been done according to how we require it to be done at Glasgow. So I hope that helps answer the dissertation question a little bit.
Yeah. So we had one come in here, the benefit of the CPD program, and is the CPD does that serve as an entry point to the MSc?
It kind of could be. So
yeah.
If you did an individual course as a CPD unit, then we could in the future, then if you apply for the masters, we could apply, you know, prior credit because it's credit bearing, so we could count that towards a future degree. I mean, the CPD option was mainly for, we have had 2 or 3 inquiries from people who don't actually want to do the range of stuff in the masters, and they maybe just want to do one very specific course, and that's really who the CPD option is aimed at. But certainly if that was something that you were interested in, Shahid, then it is an option that you could do, and then perhaps then do the masters at a later date where we could essentially award prior learning for those 10 credits or 20 credits that you've done. I suppose you just need to be aware, because it's a new programme that's just started in April, some of the courses won't be starting for another couple of years. So when you look at the programme, essentially the courses which are within the programme, they're starting in an order, and we won't get to some of the courses until another year or 2 at least. So it's not like you can look at the whole list of courses and say, I want to do that one in September. You know, they all run in specific semesters. So you would just join when the students who are on the masters are doing it anyway. As I say, because this programme is just new, it's going to take that couple of years to roll through the first iterations of all the courses. Well, I hope that answers. We've got a question about what are the maximum number of electives we can register for. So in the second year, essentially there's 60 credits, and you can choose 60 out of that. As I said, if you're registered for the full masters, then 2 of the courses in second year are mandatory. So the research methods and the hot topics in animal nutrition, and they're really to prepare you for going into that real research phase. So then if you're doing the full masters in second year, then you have 40 credits, then which are up for grabs, that you can choose whatever out of the other courses that you want to do. If I just share my screen a little minute, I've just got a little spreadsheet here which just illustrates my point a little bit. So can you see that okay, Sarah?
Yeah, I can see that fine. So
yeah, so I've just abbreviated in column A that I've just got abbreviations for the various courses. So in the first year, it's those 320 credit or your core courses that all students will do. In your second year, that's the list, that's the highlighted courses there that you can choose from. So as I mentioned in rows 14 and 15, the current topics and the research methods, they are mandatory for those students who want to do the full masters. So then that means that out of between rows 6 and 13, you can choose your remaining 40 credits out of that list there. For students who are only wanting to do the postgraduate diploma, they can essentially choose 60 credits out of that entire second year highlighted courses. So does that help to answer that question?
Hopefully
Fully?
has helped. Yeah, I'm just double checking through to see if we've got any more. Haven't had anything else through yet, but
No.
I'll give everyone a few more moments in case there was anything else that came up. And I can't.
So out of the list, Sarah, is there anything we've not covered yet of the pre-prepared questions?
We've covered all the ones that came in through email as well.
Okay.
So I think we should be good.
So is there any other, does anyone else want to ask any questions through the chat? I can see 4 attendees' names here, but I think there might be anonymous ones. Is that right, Sarah?
Yeah, there might be, yeah.
Yeah, but so certainly anybody, please, if you want to ask some questions, just this is your opportunity, or to ask anything about the academics or the institutions involved in the programs, the departments, etc.
I will say as well, though, if you have got a question but you'd prefer to ask it privately, then you can just hit reply to the email that we sent you initially, where we sent you the timetable for this. That will come through to my team in the graduate school, and we'll then forward it on to Peter or to the admin team if it's relevant for them as well. So we're always here to answer any questions you might have. And we really appreciate you also taking time today to join us for this session, and hopefully you've got a bit more information on the programme and feel like you know a bit more what to expect about when it starts. So I think, is there anything else at all that you wanted to add, Peter, in terms of
just to say, I think there was a question I've just thought that perhaps we didn't quite cover, and it was when you can access the course and things like that. So it was just to mention. So when you come to us, essentially, once you've gone through all the registration steps, then you will be issued with a GUID, which is the Glasgow University Identifier Number, or identifier something anyway. So we've all got that. Staff and students all get that. Once you have that, you go in to I think an IT page so you can set your password. And then once that's done, we actually before each intake, so 3 times per year, before you would start whatever course it is you're going into at that point, the college or MVLS graduate school digital education team actually run a full week of induction activities. So we have a particular induction session that runs over a week, and that won't just be for you guys. That will be for incoming students to other programs within the college as well. The digital education team that we have in MVLS are absolutely fantastic. They're the envy of the other colleges in the university, to be fair, and we have terrific support from them. So I'm going to take a wee drink. So they're really good. And so what they'll do is really get you orientated to our online system. And if you give me a little second, I'll just share our Moodle page and let you have a little look what it looks like. Okay, so you can see that okay, Sarah? Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, so this is just our hub page where there's general program information and university resources. And I'll just give you an example. If we go into a course, there's the induction. In fact, I'll just go to the induction course here. And so that runs over the week, and they have little tasks that they ask students to do, and it's really to get you used to the technology and used to using Moodle, which is the university's virtual learning environment, and also links to the various university support systems. For example, if anyone has any disabilities, that we need to be aware of, we're very good at trying to support as much as we can. And oh, that reminds me, I think there was a pre-prepared question about if anyone's hard of hearing, etc. So just to reassure students that we're doing this anyway, but there's new legislation comes in September, which means that all materials provided online have to be fully accessible. So what that means is that there will either be there will usually be transcripts or extensive notes within presentations that we provide afterwards, so that anyone hard of hearing can actually have those as well. So for this, that was just to show the induction course, and then if I just go back and look at this is the course which has run, just to show you how it looks on when you're actually using it. So this was the course which has just finished, that started in April. And as you can see, it's a lovely, simple block design that actually MBLS came up with, and now the rest of the university is trying to copy this kind of format. So that you've got your course information page on assessments, and then if I just click on week 1, we've then got our individual little pages for each week. So the way, because we design this in blocks, it means that you don't have the scroll of death of some virtual learning pages where you're scrolling down to get all your material. So it's quite nice little blocks that you can just toggle back and forth between the different weeks. And again, we have we've got introductions. So we ask you to do a little introduction, and during the induction week, you'll be guided on how to do a little filmed introduction of yourself and your background. And then we actually have then week 1 reading list. There can be learning activities where you might be asked to write a little 500-word summary of something, just to try and consolidate your learning. So that gives you a little bit of an idea as you go through the course from the different weeks. And as you can see, there's a live session there. It was in week 3, etc. So that just gives you a little bit of information on how the course actually, how we're delivering it via our virtual learning environment.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much, Peter. We had one more question come in about the CPD and how much credit it was worth. Am I right in thinking it will be depending on the course that they choose to do?
Depends on the course, Shahid. So if you remember back to that, the little Excel sheet I shared about the different courses. So 3 of the courses are 20 credits, and the rest are all 10 credits, apart from the dissertation. So if you're paying for CPD, it's a kind of pro rata payment based on the number of credits, but in terms of credits, then it just depends if it's a 20 or a 10 credit course, and that's what would be then the credits awarded to you for whatever course you're doing. Yeah. There's also a question about, are we required any feed formulation software as part of the course? So I'm not aware that you'd be required to purchase anything. As my colleagues at SRUC will be doing more of feed form because of the way the courses are organised. So, for example, myself and my colleagues are leading, that will be leading the kind of vet school courses, and then my colleagues at SRUC will be leading their own courses, although I have ultimate oversight of everything. But they'll be leading more on the feed formulation side of things, because that's what their courses cover, that kind of material more. So there are some kind of free software packages out there, which I'm quite sure they'll be able to. I'm not sure what they'll be using, but certainly we wouldn't require students to purchase software. So we would look at softwares that we could use, or they can at least use softwares they've got to demonstrate how they're used. But that's something I can always, if you want me to find out more information about, then please contact either myself or Sarah, and I can find out more about that from my colleagues at SRUC if you want real specifics on what software they might be using, for example, to work through feed formulations and ration formulations.
That's great, thank you. Okay, I think then.
Is there any further questions from anyone on the chat or on the Q&A before we would finish up? Is there anything you want to know about the vet school or SRUC or any of the staff that are on the programmes?
I suppose just while we give people a minute in case they've got anything else that they want to type up, there was a question that I've somehow missed. It was a more general one actually about online courses, but it was asking about the kinds of assessments that happen as part of the course, when they take place, what kind of things you might be expected to do.
Yeah. So in this programme, we don't have any, I suppose I call them high stakes exams. So we don't have any end of year exams or anything. I don't think they work anyway, so that's why I didn't use them when I was designing this programme. So each individual course has its own assessments. For a 20 credit course, there will only be 2 assessments, usually each worth 50%. And for the shorter 10 credit courses, there will only be 1 assessment. What I've done in this programme, which is a bit different to how some have been organised in the past, is I've tried to introduce a whole range of assessment types. So traditionally, you know, people, especially for online programmes, and even some on campus, have used things like essays for lots and lots of assessments. We do use essays in this programme, but only on certain courses. So, for example, the course which has just finished on feed formulation, one of the assessments there was on using question types which are called extended matching questions. And what we use them quite a lot in the vet school when we're teaching the vet students. And essentially, they're a little bit like multiple choice questions, but you might have an extended, say, bullet list of options, and then you'd have a series of questions or scenarios that you're given, and you have to try and match that with the best option above. We've got some assessments might be about developing wikis. So that's one of the skills we want to get, is things like developing a wiki, producing reports. It could be about critiquing scientific papers. We will have assessments around doing some presentations online, where you work up a presentation on a topic. So we have across all the courses, we've tried to introduce lots of different assessment types, which means that you're getting or developing a lot of different skills, and not just doing the 1 or 2 type of assessments or MCQ questions or essays all the time. So we've got really quite a variety of assessments that you'll get a lot of different skills out of. The other thing what I try to do, and I try to advise the other course leaders to do, is many of our students come, even in this first batch that started in April, come from very diverse backgrounds. And that includes also the species that they're interested in. So one thing I try and advise people, and I'll be doing, for example, in the course which starts in September, is I'm going to design the assessment in such a way that while there might be a broad topic that is the same for everyone, because we need to kind of have a kind of quality assurance of that, I will hopefully be able to introduce an element of flexibility in terms of perhaps the species that you choose. So if you're really interested in horses, or if you're really interested in pigs, or it could be a particular animal in zoos. You know, we've got one student who works in a zoo and has a lot to do with nutrition and health of zoo animals. So we want to give students the opportunity to tailor some of the assessments in a species that they're interested in. So that's one thing. We're trying to be more flexible than previous course programs have been on things like that. So the overall topic might be the same that all students have to do, but it might be that you can do that topic in your species of choice. So it might all work for, I'm not saying that would be the case for all assessments in all courses, but certainly where there is an element of introducing flexibility, that's what I'll be trying to advise all my academics to do.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you very much. Well, I think it seems like we've answered. So obviously, if anything else comes to you, do feel free to get in touch with us. And I just want to take this opportunity as well to say thank you very much to all of our attendees for joining us, especially for submitting your questions as well. We really appreciate that. And thank you also to Peter for joining us today and giving up his time and presenting more on the programme. So thank you very much for that. And we look forward to hopefully welcoming you all a wee bit later this year, again virtually, but we'll see. Did you have anything you wanted to add before we finish up, Peter?
No, just to say I've been delighted that the program's going great so far. We're really excited. It was a couple of years kind of conceiving this program, and it's great now to have students on board. And it's good to have a program that's delivered by genuine experts in their field, you know, who are very research active. So it's a very research, in terms of the teaching, it's quite research informed. So, you know, what we're teaching you is supported by research. But it's also a very applied and practical program. So lots of applied and practical information on rationing, etc., and how we feed animals, and health implications, etc., etc. And we've got contacts with the feed industry as well, who will be contributing to delivery of some aspects that are much more commercially relevant as well. So we're drawing in a lot of expertise from academia and beyond that, and also from vets and clinical practice who are specialists. You know, I've got a friend of mine who's a European specialist in exotic animals, and she's going to be helping deliver some material for us as well in the modules that will cover exotic animals. So we're delighted if you can join us, and I'm sure you'll get a lot out of the programme that will help with your future kind of career paths.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, again, thank you so much for joining us. We'll end it there, but we'll send the recordings out to you as well as soon as we've got the transcripts all sorted out. So yeah, thanks for joining, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you soon. And any other questions, just give us a shout. Right, thank you very much. Bye for now.
Great, thank you.